following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View. The People's View is a show sponsored by the Nashua Republican City Committee. The committee meets every second Thursday at the Crown Plaza. And if you want to contact us, we have a website, nashuagop.org. And at the end of the show, you'll see some contact phone numbers or email addresses that you may want to send us your comments and recommendations. Thank you for listening in.
Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello and welcome to People's View. And today we have Dave Wheeler, who's running as the for the Executive Council. Dave, this time we're going to talk a little bit about the railroad.
Absolutely.
And you've had this issue when you were served before, and you think it's going to be coming up again next year.
Yeah, and I spent some time this morning, get a briefing from the Commissioner of Transportation on exactly where the rail study lies, the Concord Corridor Rail Study. And so the Commissioner said that they expect to have a final report in December, and then it would be up to the Governor and the Council to, to act on that report, dependent upon what's available for federal funds and other funding. He also was saying that preliminarily, they believe that it would not be feasible to take this line all the way to Concord, which is the position I've held in the past. The ridership especially tails off when you get north of Manchester and makes the project unaffordable and would require way too much subsidy to make
And the initial capital expense would be that much more too.
And the initial capital expense would be, quite a bit more too. And so that if you talk about just going to Manchester, let's say the capital expense is probably around $150 million plus interest on borrowing the money, where you're up in the $300 million if you continue that rail all the way to Concord. So I was concerned about these things and didn't vote for the study. One, because this will be like the fourth study we've done. We really already knew that. We didn't have to pay, $1.4 million to find that out. But we will get more information in December so we can make educated decisions on how to go from there. I think that you're going to find that the study will recommend a couple stops in Nashua and a couple stops in Manchester. The question still remains, or will remain in December, is how do we fund this? Where do we get the money from to keep it operating? Because there's really no train like this anywhere in the country that's self-sufficient, that the fare box pays for the train. And then the other issues that we have to look at is if we decide to move forward with the train, will it take ridership away from the bus service? We have Boston Express is very successful running Nashua to Boston and is running in the black. So we want to make sure that we're trying to help commuters onto a train, we don't kill the good bus service that we've established that doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime to run. And when this line was going to Concord, the subsidy was expected to be around $10 million a year just to keep it operating after you have the capital expense. And so I'm not against doing a train, but I am very concerned about how we would fund it. And perhaps baby steps to, maybe the Nashua border, the Pheasant Lane Mall would make sense. Would make sense, and see how that performs, and try to make sure it doesn't kill the good bus service. What people haven't heard too much is that this train study also includes other modes of transportation, including buses, and should be looking at the options of, maybe it makes financial sense to expand the bus service instead of the train. Maybe they can work. Maybe they would work well together. One of the options would be to add double-decker buses. So you would lower your operating costs by having more people per bus driver and per coach. That's a possibility. The possibility that we would look at high occupancy vehicle lanes from here to Boston to keep those buses moving faster and getting people where they need to go faster.
Are they working with the Massachusetts traffic agency or whatever?
They are.
Okay.
And I think that's an important fact that the viewers need to know, that this New Hampshire train would be run by Massachusetts. Would be run by the same MBTA.
So it is MBA. Okay.
Yeah, that's losing money hand over fist already. Massachusetts insists that if we're going to Lowell and Boston, that they run the train in our state. And it's important to get it figured out who's going to control how much they can charge us to run their train. And the fact that the commissioner tells me that the train set itself would be owned by MBTA, Massachusetts. So there's a lot of issues there that we need to get.
We just hand them the money, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope we have some controls on that. That was something that I think Mayor Lozo was looking at for Nashua when everything fell apart a couple of years ago. Because everybody was holding out. We had to do it all the way to Concord. That's the only way we could do it. And I don't believe that. I think one of the things the legislature was concerned with is, why didn't we take it in steps? Make one step, see how that works out, then 2 steps, and maybe 3 steps if that can be justified. But now you're telling me that it looks like they're looking at everything, and a new part of it is that MBTA would control the running of it.
Well, it's not really new. I think that we kind of knew that was going to happen, but now it's my understanding that right now there's being an agreement made between the state of New Hampshire DOT and Mass DOT to work out those details, and they're putting together a memorandum of agreement of how that would work if this project goes forward.
So it's similar to the one that the train that runs all the way to Maine? It would be somewhat
similar. It would be similar to the Downeaster.
Downeaster.
Yeah, and I mean that has issues of, even though that train goes through New Hampshire, New Hampshire doesn't pay in to operate that train. Maine is picking up the short leg of that Downeaster that's running through New Hampshire. Which it's also important to note that the Downeaster is losing like $10 million a year.
Definitely.
So this is a good idea, but do the people of Nashua want to pay more taxes to keep, to put this train on the tracks, or would they be happy they could get the same surface perhaps on a bus, and maybe even more regular trips on a bus? So we need to look at those. We need to look at those issues. How do we get people from southern New Hampshire to Massachusetts, and the Boston corridor to work, into the baseball game and stuff, without costing the taxpayers more than we can afford?
Yeah, I think that's a smart way of going about it. And it also solves other problems if you're looking at the whole southern New Hampshire transportation. Right now we have good roads going up and down, but not east and west.
Yes.
And I think that might be necessary, and combined with a bus service to certain depots or the airport or whatever, I think that might be very much more effective.
And we are planning for the future. Down the new I-93 expansion, there's a corridor for rail. We're looking to the future when the population can make rail work financially. We're planning for it, and that's the bare minimum we need to do is plan.
I see.
And maybe we can get a baby step off the ground. Maybe we can get it to the New Hampshire border.
Well, that might not be bad if you do. the Route 3 part up to Nashua, but the expansion to Manchester might come up through 93. That would be a different way.
It's possible that the corridor could come up 93, although I think that it's more likely it would come up parallel to the Everett Turnpike and
the river,
and jut over toward the airport if that were to happen. But we have airport issues that we need to deal with too. I mean, when we were the only one when Manchester had Southwest, employments were way up, and now that people can get Southwest in Boston and pay less than fly in Manchester, it puts into question whether even the airport connection will work, and whether it's necessary, or we keep using, the flight line minibuses to make the connection between the two.
Yeah.
There's a lot to look at.
Taking Southwest down to Baltimore, they have a rail connection, and they do that with buses from the airport to the rail connection, and that seems to work fairly well. And that goes in on the regular commuter line from Baltimore to Washington.
Right.
So that's something that should be considered, and I'm glad to see. But that shows some of your experience in working with these problems that the Executive Council gets.
This issue's been around for a while, and I suspect that we won't be done with it for a generation. Get things started, keep it on the drawing board. Maybe, like I said, take a baby step, see if it works. Make sure we don't devastate the bus service that works in the black for a reasonable price with no taxpayer subsidies.
The bus service is very good. I mean, you get everything, you even get Wi-Fi on the bus.
I've been over there, and the parking lot is just full.
And
one of the immediate needs for the bus service is more parking.
More parking.
So we'll see how that can work.
Well, they should have some room over there in that area, adjacent to.
Right, I understand they may be closing the post office across the street, and maybe we could pick up some parking or lease some parking inexpensively in that area. It should work. It's a nice facility.
Yeah, it is. It's
a very nice facility.
Well, what other things you've been serving? How many years have you been up there?
Well, I've been 6 years on the council representing Nashua. On the council, a state senator before that, and a state representative before that. Starting in 1988. Goes by fast, Carl.
I guess so. I started late in my life. So you've had experience in a number of different areas. Can you sort of relate to our audience about some of the more interesting experiences?
Well, whether you're a state rep like yourself or a senator or a councilor, I think almost always in the top of the priority list is the budget. How much can we afford? How much do the people in New Hampshire want to pay for the services that New Hampshire delivers? And I think with our existing revenue streams, we're right at the edge of being able to afford what we're funding. We borrowed too much money in the last couple of years. Standard & Poor's has lowered our outlook from positive to negative. Whenever we're on the edge, like getting sued by the hospitals, that makes the bond rating companies nervous, and we'll lose our AA bond rating. And if we're not careful, we should keep our borrowing within 10% of our general fund revenues. We've always traditionally been around 5 or 6%. It's creeping up to 8 and over 8% now. So we're at a place where we really got to put the brakes on borrowing to stay financially sound. And when the state is financially sound, we can help more people. If it costs us more money to borrow money, that's that many less dollars that we have to help people to use.
Well, I think one of the other aims of the Republican Party is to build the state up to make it more economical for new companies to start up here and to stay here or move here. How does the Executive Council get involved in any of that? I mean, I guess you have to approve some of the contracts that go through that.
I think there's a few things we need to do to attract business. Our business tax rates are quite high. So again, that relates to the budget. We need to be careful what we're spending. We don't need any more burden on business, or they're going to go to places where it's cheaper to do business. Any type of business that uses electricity to make their products. We are one of the most expensive states in the country. We need to find a way to get clean hydropower to the grid. We need to find a way to do that. Some people are just totally opposed to Northern Pass, but I think we need to find a way that we can do that that's environmentally and visually friendly. We need that clean power on the power grid. We'd be buying it from our allies and not from our enemies. I think that would be smart.
I think so too. I see where in the paper where they're putting in for increases of anywhere from 30 to 60% in the rate for electricity. That's awful high. And it's high now.
It would be it's a big deterrent from the businesses that would be served by Unitil and those that are going to have the rate increase. So electric prices is high on the priority list to attract business and keep people in jobs in New Hampshire.
So you have to approve a lot of those contracts, but you don't get involved in any way as the executive counselor in the rate setting.
Only that, I mean, we do indirectly that the executive council does hire the people at the Public Utilities Commission, the Public Utilities Commissioners, and we do want a flavor over there that will protect the consumer.
I see.
And that will look at energy alternatives and try to help get them here in a way that will work.
Okay, so you're looking for people with ideas and innovation and people who can know how to run a business.
Absolutely, and we don't want no naysayers. That we want people that are going to say, look, we'll find a way to get this done.
Okay.
We don't want people that are just going to say, no Northern Pass, period. We don't need this electricity. We do. The grid needs the electricity, and New Hampshire benefits from that directly and indirectly.
Well, I don't think people know that you have to approve the appointments of councilors like that, or levels at that. And you also have to approve all the agency heads.
All the agency heads, the Commissioner of Transportation, Health and Human Services, Education, and Environmental Services, Fish and Game Commissioners, all the way down the line. And of course, we do, most people know we are the body that confirms judges that the governor would nominate. In the state.
They're doing a little bit of that right now, I guess. There's a couple that are going to be holding public hearings on. So that's interesting. Have you had any interesting interviews that you can relate to us?
Well, I don't know about interesting, but we are out there trying to get the word out. One of my goals, if I am elected on the council, would be to bring transparency back to state government. I think we talked about this before, Carl, but the $292 million welfare expansion contract passed by the executive council, and they never read it. And more importantly, it was never out there in the public long enough for the public to read it. Very concerned that there's only two people delivering those two companies delivering those services now, and instead of having more competition with managed care, Medicaid, we're getting less.
I think people are looking and seeing some of the faults in that. Well, Dave, we ran through our time already.
Amazing.
But anyway, good luck on your campaigning. I hope to see you up there next year. And we'll see how we go with this rail situation.
Well, thank you, Carl. And people can always get a hold of me at my website, davewheeler.org, and we can discuss things further.
Very good. Thank you. And I'm sure the audience, if they have questions, will get in touch with you.
All right. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you for coming in.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.